Piyush. I'm currently taking care of the company which is known as the New Osa Mediquare Private Limited, and we are incubated at NIT Nagpur, and we are supported by Biorack Venture Center, Betic, which is a IIT Bombay group, and VNIT. And that's my founding team. That's me. I'm Piyush, and we have ENT surgeons in the team. We have a regulatory person in the team, and we have a faculty from VNIT who is taking care about the R&D side. Okay, and last year we got the BIREC BIG grant to develop the prototype to develop our product that is the artificial temporal bone. So these are the product that we are currently developing. We are developing the 3D printed temporal bone. We are developing the skull based models. We are developing the clear labyrinth and the ossicular chains. We have conducted more than 10 plus workshops where the surgeons give trainings to the young ENT surgeons or the PG students, and we try to enhance their skills, their surgical skills by conducting such kind of workshops. And these kind of workshops are purely hands-on workshops where the bones are being carried and the surgeons can practice all kind of surgical procedure which are going to be there in the real-time surgeries. We got a good kind of exposure from the print media as well, and we also bagged few awards and presented our work at various exhibitions. Like we presented our work at MEU to Dubai, and we have also presented in Paris, USA. In India, we have covered Nashik, Hyderabad, Bangalore. So we got a good exposure regarding our product, and we won many awards. And we also filed 2 patents regarding the same, that is the process of making such kind of bones. And we also have a temporal bone dissection lab at our office where the PG students, young PG students, can come and do the dissection practice. The lab is fully equipped with all the surgical equipment which are needed for the hands-on practice, and we do manufacture the bones. So, which is the critical part in the lab or in the entire procedure. So that has been taken care by us, and all the other setup is already been there. So any of the young ENT PG student can come and do the dissection there. Okay. So that's all about the company. Now let's begin with today's session. So let's start talking about, like, I'll be focusing on the opportunities for 3D printing in healthcare domain, like where we can work, what kind of opportunities are there. I am not going to cover the more detailed about that, like what kind of R&D facility do we need, but I'll just try to give you the basic exposure, like what are the things that we can do if we know the 3D printing technology, and where we can find some kind of research work. Okay. So to begin with, let's start with the Industrial Revolution. As we all know, the first Industrial Revolution started at the end of the 18th century. The second Industrial Revolution started in the beginning of the 20th century, when the mass production was introduced. The third Industrial Revolution was started in the beginning of 1970s, where the use of electronics and ITs were used. And now currently the fourth Industrial Revolution is going on. Which is based on the cyber security, physical systems. Okay. So if we talk about the manufacturing science, so the first question is, what is 3D printing, and what are the other type of manufacturing techniques? Like here, in other type of manufacturing processes, we are not talking about the detailed classification, but we are talking about the broad classification of the manufacturing process. Suppose if I want to make this part, how can I make this part? We can either go with the CNC kind of machining, we can go with the injection molding kind of process, or we can go with the 3D printing kind of process, or we can go any other kind of process. Okay. So if we broadly classify this thing, suppose the first one is the formative process. So in formative process, what we are going to do, we are going to make a mold. So in that mold, we are going to pour the material, and once the material has been cured, it has been solidified, then the mold will be opened, and we are going to get the final part. Suppose if I want to make the same kind of part by using the subtractive technique. So here we are going to, first of all, we'll have a block of the material. Then we are going to machine the part and remove the material. And finally, we are going to get the part. And the third and the last process is the additive kind of process. In additive kind of process, we are going to add the material layer by layer successively, and we are going to get the final part. So this is how we can make the part. Now, if you want to choose the process, among these three. So which process do we need to choose? If I choose the formative process, the initial cost is going to be very high because the cost of mold will be very high. But subsequently, and for subtractive, the initial cost will be slightly low as compared to the formative, and additive, the initial cost will be very much low because here we don't need any kind of molds or any kind of fixtures to make the part. Hence, the initial cost will be low. But as the number of parts are going to be increased, we can see in the formative the cost per part is going to be decreased. In subtractive also the cost of per part is going to be decreased, but in additive the cost per part is going to be the same. It is almost same. Okay. So among these three, so if I depending on the number of parts we need to manufacture, depending upon the resolution, the accuracy we want, we need to choose the technique accordingly. So it is not like, suppose I want to make a few hundreds of parts, so I should go with the formative kind of thing. It will be like the initial cost will be high, so the cost per part is going to be very high. So one should choose the process accordingly, and it should be chosen like very effectively. Okay. So from this, if you talk about the definition of the 3D printing, it is like the process in which we convert any digital model into the physical model is known as a 3D printing. So how we are going to convert a digital model into the physical model? So here we are going to add the successive layers, and all the successive layers will be stacked upon each other. So finally, we are going to get a 3D printed part. Okay. If we talk about the current scenario of 3D printing, so 3D printing are currently been used in many applications. Like the first one is the prosthetic limb and body parts. So we can use to make the customized prosthetic limbs. We can use the 3D printing to build homes and other buildings. Like now you all have seen that construction 3D printing is taking a very much boom, and many people are trying to use the 3D printing to make the houses. Like are you aware with the Mars program? Like there are two startups in USA who are trying to build the houses in Mars. So what they planned is like they are going to take the material from the Mars itself. They will pick up the sand from there, and they do have some kind of process by which they can convert that sand into a bondable material, and then they will be using the same material to build the houses in the Mars. Okay, so this one is having a great opportunity in the coming future. And in India, L&T company have already fabricated one 3D printed house, and they have successfully shown the technology. And IIT Madras has also shown the successful demonstration of the technology. They also have printed one small house in the campus. The next example is going to be the edible 3D printing, we can print the food by using 3D printing technique, and this can be used in like by using this technique we can make any kind of complex shapes. Like here we can see the chocolate has been printed. Like suppose I want to make any kind of complex icing on the cake. So such kind of complex structure, it is not possible to do such kind of icing by using the manual technique. So we can do such kind of we can make such kind of complex shapes by using 3D printing techniques. We can use the 3D printing for manufacturing domain. Like we can do the batch production. Many of us, like suppose I want to make a particular part. Like as I have told you, like which process do we need to choose? Suppose we are in the design iteration process. We want to validate the design, and we want to make the part at a small batch of, let's say, 50 or 60 units. So at that particular point of time, it is not advisable to use the conventional kind of technique. Like if I go with the formative technique, so I do need to make a mold, then the part is going to be make. And suppose if there is any design change in the part after testing and validation, so those design iterations, I also need to make the same design iteration in the mold itself. So it is going to be the very time consuming as well as the cost consuming process. So in that case, if we're using a 3D printing kind of technique, so we can save the time, we can save the cost, and we can easily validate the products, and we can make any kind of complex shapes as we can see here. Like it is not possible to make this kind of complex shapes by using any other kind of conventional techniques. So here we need to we can use the 3D printing techniques. We do have a design freedom. Like design freedom means like I'm talking about, suppose this is the image of a fuel injector which has been used in the aviation industry in the aeroplane. And initially this part was supposed to be assembled. So what they used to do is they used to make different components. They used to make different components from different vendors. All those components would come to the industry, to the assembly unit. Then the assembly unit will assemble the part accordingly, and this part will be then used in the aeroplane. So what 3D printing did is like we make the design in a one piece, in a single piece, and then we have printed the part. Then this part has been printed in a single piece. So the beauty of 3D printing is like, since the assembly part has been removed, so all those number of components which were initially made by different vendors, all those components are been coupled together. So likewise, the nuts and screws were eliminated, and 3D printing helped us to save the weight of the material, weight of the part. So since the weight of the part has been reduced, so the efficiency of the entire product will be increased, because the lesser will be the weight, the lesser will be the fuel consumption. So ultimately, the fuel consumption was decreased, and fuel efficiency was increased. So likewise, we can have a design freedom by using a 3D printing. We can work for the weight reduction. Like suppose I want to make such kind of model. Okay, so here my design limitations are like, I need two holes at this particular point, I need two holes at this particular position, okay, and I need one hole at this particular position. So due to this design constraint, by using any conventional technique, I have to make this model as an entire block here. Sorry. I have to make this model as an entire block here. Okay, but I was not supposed to remove the material. So with 3D printing and weight reduction technology, what we can do is like, suppose if I do the FEA analysis on the same part, and I can find out the critical areas where the part is going to be failed, or where the maximum stress is going to be generated. So in that critical area, we can add more material. We can add the thickness, and in the less critical area where minimum stresses are going to be generated, we can remove the material. So that is what we did here, and it is known as a formative kind of design or a generative type of design. So here we removed the material from the non-critical area. We added a material in the critical area, in this critical area, and we made this part. So likewise, we reduce the weight. If the weight has been reduced, the same thing is going to happen. The efficiency is going to be increased there as well. So like this, we can work for the weight reduction. Then we have a beauty for customization. So in customization, what we can do is like, we can make the part customer specific to the person, or the technology, or the technology where it is being used. Like suppose I do have a vintage car or vintage bike with me, and one of such part has been broken. One of the gear of the engine is broken, and I need to replace that gear, and I'm not going to find the gear in the market. So what we can do is like, so if I have a 3D printing technology, if I have the blueprint of the gear, so I can make those kind of component by using 3D printing technique, and we can use those component to repair the vintage models. Likewise, if you talk about a person, so we all have a different kind of anatomical features. Like each and everyone is having a different kind of body, our posture is different, our body structure is different. So we cannot use any kind of generic material there. So suppose if I here, if I want to use a custom kind of hearing aid, so what we can do is like, we can scan the ear, we can make the customized hearing aid, and those kind of hearing aids can be used by the patient according to the customization. So each and everyone will have a different kind of design, and those design can be easily fabricated by using 3D printing techniques. And the last application can be the conformal cooling and heating. So now people have started using the 3D printing for heat exchangers. Like we can make an effective kind of design for heat exchangers, and it will also increase the efficiency as compared to the conventional heat exchangers. So these are all about the current scenarios where 3D printing is currently being used. Um, if we talk about the 3D printing technology, we have different technologies with us. Like, are you all aware whether 3D printing technologies, like the basic structure has been covered? Hello, am I audible?
So now you're audible, sir.
Yeah. So 3D printing techniques are covered now.
Sanu, you are not audible, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. 3D printing techniques are been covered. The basics of 3D printing, like what are the different type of 3D printing techniques? Because here I have a question for the participants. Like they need to identify like which particular kind of 3D printing technique is this. If the 3D printing techniques are covered, so they can easily identify this process. If not, I have to explain the process then. I think the process have not been covered. So let's talk about the first process. So the first one is the SLA technique. Okay. So in SLA, what we will do is like we will going to have a scanning kind of mirror, and the scanning mirror will reflect the laser light, and this material will be the UV cured material. It's a photopolymeric material. Okay, and this bed will move in downward direction from up to down direction. Okay? So what we will do once we slice the model, the G code will be stored in the machine, and the laser beam, the laser spot will travel according to the tool path. So suppose I want to make the first layer. So the tool path will travel on the first layer, and wherever the laser has been spotted on the resin, that material is going to be cured. Since it is a this one is a UV curing laser, and the material is a photopolymeric material. So wherever the UV light will be wherever the UV light is going to be there, the material will be cured. The material will be cured, and we are going to get the final part. So likewise, the first layer will be generated. Once the first layer is generated, the bed will move downward, and the fresh resin will come on the top of the layer, and the laser will again move, and we are going to get the second layer. So accordingly, the part is going to be fabricated in SLA. If we talk about the FDM kind of technique, in FDM kind of technique, this is known as the extruder assembly. So the extruder assembly will move in X and Y direction, and the bed will move in Z direction. Okay, or else in other kind of configuration we have the bed will move in Y direction as well as in Z direction, and the extruder will move in X direction. So we can have any configuration of these two kind of arrangements. So here, this is the main area which is going to print the material. So it is known as the extruder head. In the extruder head, we will have two end of extruder gear, and the material will be in the form of a filament. The extruder gear will rotate, and it will push the filament into the extruder nozzle. This extruder nozzle will be heated, and it is known as a heated nozzle. So once the material will come into the heated nozzle, the material is going to be melted, and it will extrude from the nozzle. So according to the G code that we have generated, the G code will have a tool path. So this extruder nozzle will move according to the tool path. Suppose I want to make a square. So this is the first point. So the extruder nozzle will move like this. Okay. So according to the tool path, the extruder nozzle will move, and the material is going to be extruded, and we are going to get the 3D printed part. So one layer is going to be printed there. Then the bed will move downward, and the successive second layer will be printed on above the first above the first layer. So this is the technique known as FDM, and the third technique is known as the SLS. In SLS, in SLS also we do have a laser and a scanning mirror. So the scanning mirror will reflect the laser on this particular bed, and here the material will be used in the form of a powder, and the laser is going to center the powder. So here what we will do is like the same according to the G code, the laser will move, and wherever the laser will point out, that material is going to be centered, and accordingly the layer is going to be made. And once the layer is made, the bed will move downward. This bed will move downward, and this platform of the unsintered splinter powder will move upward. Okay, and this fresh powder from the recoater roller will be pushed towards this print bed, and it will spread evenly. The powder will be spread evenly on the print bed. So accordingly, we can have the printed part. Now, if we talk about the 3D printing process chain, so the basic process chain is like, the first of all, we are going to need a CAD model. Once we have the CAD model, then we will make the STL file, and from STL file we are going to generate the toolpath or the G code, and this G code is going to be transferred into the 3D printer, and the printer will print the object accordingly. Okay, so this is the 3D printing process chain, which is followed by each and every by any type of 3D printing techniques. So let's talk about the 3D printing in healthcare. 3D printing in healthcare can be broadly classified into 4 different categories. So first one is the tissue and organ fabrication. The second one is the customized prosthetics. And third is the implant and anatomical model. And fourth can be the pharmaceutical research, where we can control the drug, the personalized drugs. The drug delivery can be the customized drug delivery can be done. Okay. The benefits of 3D printing in medical is like customization and personalization can be there. It is really cost effective kind of thing. It enhances the productivity, and we can serve a large number of population if we have a 3D printing technology. Some of the innovative uses of 3D printing in medicine is like, the first one is the surgical planning. So suppose if I want to use 3D printing technology for the surgical planning, so where we can use this kind of application, we can use this application for making the patient specific model, and those kind of patient specific model can be used by the surgeon to plan the surgery. Like if they already know by using such kind of pre-surgical models, they can plan the approach, that how to enter the region. Suppose they want to remove any kind of tumor, so they will know that which particular approach do we need to choose in order to remove the tumor, in order to remove the lesion, and they can plan accordingly. So the benefit of surgical planning is like, we can reduce the surgical time, can be reduced, the surgical cost can be reduced, and the surgeon will have a more and more confidence. Like he or she already knows like what kind of complication they're going to face on the table. If they do the surgery directly, so what kind of complication they are going to face. Because here what we do is like, we take the CT scan from the patient, and we make the customized model for the patient who is going to be operated, and the surgeon will practice on the same model, so they already know that what kind of complication they're going to face, and this helps to take them quick decisions during surgery. So if we want to if we talk about this particular area, so here we have 2 different categories. The first one is a patient specific surgery, a pre-surgical model, and second one is a pathological model. So if we for the patient specific models, we can use it as a pre-operative planning. We can use it as a patient consent or education. We can show the patient like, okay, like this much of area is been damaged, so this much of area is need to be removed, and what kind of complication they can face. So those kind of patient education can be used. We can use this as an intraoperative tool, like suppose in the orthopedic sides, if someone needs to have any kind of plates or rods needs to be there, so those plates and rods can be pre-bended, like if we give a patient specific model to the surgeon, so they can do the pre-bending of the plates, and they can use those kind of plates directly in the surgeries. And we can use such kind of pre-operative model to make the surgical guides. Like here we can see, this is the surgical guide. The surgeon wants to drill here, the surgeon wants to drill the screw at a particular axis. Like if they doesn't have such kind of guide with them, so it is really hard for them to insert at this particular axis. Like it may happen without the guide, they can either go in the same direction, or they can go like this, or they can go like this. So the accuracy or the accuracy cannot be maintained there. So we can use this model to make the guides. We can use the model to make the contouring templates, and we can use this model to make the molds. And the second use is can be we can use the 3D printing technique to make new medical devices and instrumentations. Like if you talk about the process cycle which has been followed to develop the new medical devices, it is like first of all we are going to get need the idea where the need is being generated, and the idea can be we can get the idea from the literature research or the patent screening, or we can do the user analysis data, user need analysis data, and we can just check the complaints which are been filed by the customer, like what are the problems they are facing. So from all these things we can generate the idea like what exactly needs to be developed and what is the need for the market. And once we get the need, then we are going to develop the concept. So we are going to develop the concept, and these concepts can be evaluated at different scenarios. Suppose if I want to make any kind of tool which has been used for during the surgery. So for the concept development, I can like check different scenario. What if the product is been used within the OT? So I can simulate the product by using in the OT. I can simulate the product by using in the normal course of time, like suppose in the OPD or in the ICU. So all these things can be all these different scenarios can be evaluated. And once the concept has been developed, then we create some prototypes. And once the prototype is validated, then we develop the first iteration of the product or the POC. So in POC we design the product, we test the product, we check the usability and the functionality test. And once the product POC is been properly validated, then we do the final design verification and final design validation. And post final design validation, we are going to introduce the product into the market. So since it's a medical product, so we need to take some kind of regulatory approvals from the regulatory bodies. So we are going to file those kind of data for the regulatory approvals. And we can just transfer, like if I want to do the license manufacturing, we can transfer the design data to the manufacturing company, and we can have a small kind of batch production which we can introduce into the market, and we can take a feedback from the customer directly from the customers. So this is how a new product has been developed. If we talk about affordable processes, so the main advantage of affordable processes is like it is easy to customization, it is a cost effective, and we can have a good kind of patient comfort. Like if we talk about this particular image, it represents the conventional way of using the prosthetics. So like suppose if anyone is having a below knee if anyone is having a below knee amputee above knee amputees, so they can use this kind of below knee prosthetics. If anyone is having a thigh amputees, so they can use above knee prosthesis. So here, what we can do is like, if we talk about this particular conventional technique, so these are the sockets or the cap which have been fitted on the leg. So these two things are made by using a generic kind of design. Like maybe there may be they might have some kind of generic designs as whenever we go and buy some shirts. So we have some specific sizes there, like 38, 40, 42. So likewise, here also they can have some kind of sizes, ready-made sizes, and those ready-made sizes sockets are being fitted to the patient. So it usually happens that this kind of socket are not a perfect fit for the patient, and the patient is going to be feel some kind of incomfortable. The patient will be incomfortable while wearing this kind of processes. So by using 3D printing technique, we can make a patient specific kind of prosthesis. So here what we are going to do is we are going to take the 3D scan of the model or either of the leg. Then from the 3D scan we will design the prosthetic accordingly, and this prosthesis can be printed, and then it can be delivered to the patient. So this is how we can make the customized prosthesis. The next example can be the organ printing. Is organ printing really possible right now? So currently, the organ printing, the research on the organ printing side is going on, but no one is able to successfully print a full size, full-fledged organ in the world. There is a university in the Asia who have printed a small size of heart, and last year only they have shown the technology to print a heart, and that was the first organ which is printed. And like later on, the research is going on in organ printing. but no one was successfully able to print the entire organ for the human being. We can have a customized implant and customized implants. So here the customized implants is like, suppose you all might have heard about the total knee replacement. So if we talk about the current scenario, the total knee replacement, so we do have some kind of conventional implants there, and those conventional implants are being fitted to the patient, and then the patient will have the implant accordingly. So we always heard that some patient always complained that that in spite of having the complete knee replacement, they are still facing some kind of problem, some pain is there, or some discomfort is there. Why this thing is happening? It might be because those kind of implant are not a perfect fit for them, and maybe just due to due to unavailability of a customized implant. So we need to use those kind of implant, and we need to adjust those implant into the patient. So if you want to adjust those kind of implant in the patient, so we cannot have a perfect fit. So because of which the patient is going to complain. So in that, one of my uncle had the total knee replacement. So post operation, after 6 months, he was also complaining the same, like they were not having he was not comfortable with the patient, and he was not comfortable with the knee replacement, and he was facing some kind of pain and discomfort. So he again had to redo the operation. He had to remove the implant, and he had to redo the same procedure again after 1 year, so that he can have a complete proper kind of satisfaction. Okay, so this kind of scenarios can be avoided. The redo of the surgeries can be avoided. The patient comfort can be increased if we make the customized implants. So here we can see like these are the jaw plates which have been customized made for the patient. We can make the cranium plates for the skulls. Okay, like if I had an accident and I got an injury on my head, and my cranium plate has been broken. So this is the cranium plate. My cranium plate has been broken, and there is a bigger patch, or it has been fractured, and which needs to be removed and filled by the implant. So here, since it is a trauma kind of situation, it is an accidental situation. So the crack propagation cannot be predicted. So each and everyone will have a different kind of cracks, and the damage of the bone can be different for each and every person. So here we cannot make a customized kind of cranium plate design for each and every. Maybe it may happen that my cranium plate is broken from this particular end, someone else's cranium plate is broken from this particular end, someone else is having a broken area from this particular end. So we cannot make like here we can see the contour is different for each and every region. So we cannot make a generic kind of design for the cranium plate. So by using a 3D printing technique, like post-operation, pre-operation, we can have a patient-specific scan data. Those scan data can be used to make the customized cranium plate. So we can check the proper fitment of the plate virtually in the CAD model. And if everything is perfect, like if the implant is perfectly been fitted, if the contour matches, then we can print those customized implant accordingly, and those implants can be used at the time of the operation. So likewise, I can have a customized implant, cranium implant with me. So and this is the example for the hip implant. Like the hip bone has been damaged, so it has been again the customized implant has been made, and we can and this is also the example for the jaw. Like here the patient had lost its entire jawline, so its entire jawbone. So the entire jawbone has been replaced by the metal jaw. Okay, and currently this customized implant, like we all are aware with the mucormycosis. So in mucormycosis, many people have to remove their bones. Like they had to remove either the nasal bone or the jaw bones. So by using 3D printing technique, like there is a company which is there in Nagpur, and there is a company from Mumbai. So they are supporting these mucormycosis cases, and they are developing the customized implants for the patient. And if prior removing their bone, they take the CT scan of the patient. They design the customized implant. They print the implant, and those implant can be are then being used as a replacement for the removed bone. And likewise, the aesthetics of the patient can be restored. The next example is the drug delivery. So we can use the 3D printing for drug delivery. If you want to use the 3D printing, we can use a 3D printing technique for customized drug delivery. Suppose if I talk about the cancer patient, like if I have any kind of tumor in my body and I want to release the drug at a particular position, like I want that my drug or the capsule should travel to the particular node or the particular tumor area, and there itself it should release the drug. So that thing can be possible by using a drug delivery kind of system. So here we use some kind of additional stimulus material, and those stimulus material will activate the capsule to either open up or to dissolve the outer layer of the capsule, and the drug can be released accordingly. We can also have a personalized drug doses. We all have we all have gone through some kind of medical treatment. Like suppose if I have a cold or a fever and I go to the doctor and doctor suggests me to take half of the paracetamol tablet. Like he's suggesting me like you have a very mild fever, so you should take only half of the capsule. So so what he exactly means is like if he's suggesting he's prescribing me a 500 mg of capsule, and he's asking me to take half of the tablet of the 500 mg. So I should take exactly 250 mg of the capsule. So that is the need of the drug for my body. But are we really able to just break those capsule into two exact half? We cannot break the capsule into two exact half. It can be like maybe either I can break it I can have a 200 mg of capsule with me, or I can have a 300 or 400 mg of capsule with me. Okay, so either it can be underdose or it can be the overdose. Okay, so such kind of thing can be controlled if we have a personalized drug doses. So in 3D printing drug doses, what we can do is like we can just customize the tablet manufacturing. And if the doctor asks me to take 200 mg of paracetamol, so what I can do is like suppose this is a drug loaded bioink, it has a paracetamol drug. So and with the nozzle it will print the tablet. So I'll just give the command to the machine to print the tablet which is having a weight of exactly 200 mg of the drug. So it will make the tablet, and I'm going to get the exact 200 mg of the drug, sorry, 250 mg of the drug. Okay, so likewise we can do the personalized doses, and we can also combine different doses. Like now many combination of drugs are into the market. The drug is like the medicine like the drug is having a different kind of composition. It can serve for the cold, it can serve for the fever. So they are combining different kind of doses. So those kind of different doses can also be composed and personalized by using a 3D printing techniques. Okay. We can use the 3D printing to make the educational and training models, and this kind of educational and training models can be used to train the surgeon to perform the operation. Like if we talk about the current scenario, like there is a huge gap between the patient and the surgeon. I have gone through one study, so which claims that there is a need for at least 5 million neurosurgeons across the world by 2030. And there are more than 20 million patients which are currently been untreated due to unavailability of the surgeon. Like even if we get the surgeons, so the training is going to be the major part. Like unless and until since it's a neuro surgical models, it's a neuro patient. So the surgeon needs to be very skilled if you want to operate. So in order to improve the skills, or in order to improve the confidence level prior to the surgery, we can make such kind of educational model which can be used for the training. If you want to make such kind of educational model, so these model can be anatomically accurate. The material should mimic properly. Like here we cannot do, like suppose if we make the model by using any kind of software material, and the surgeon has been trained on the software material. Like he is habitual of drilling the software material, he is habitual of cutting the software material. Like if we made the bone with a software material and the surgeon is been trained to cut the bone, so he will have that kind of perception like the bone cutting is quite easy. So whenever they will use the real kind of patient, like whenever they do they do the bone cutting on the real patient, so the bone is going to be hard. So then there might be some kind of error or complication might start. So because of which we need to make such kind of educational model should be the anatomically accurate, as well as the material should also mimic the real kind of material. So we need to make the accurate material to train the surgeons. Okay. We can use that this 3D printing for wearable devices. So currently Adidas and Nike are been using the 3D printing technique to make the customized shoes. And the last one is the fracture cast. We can use the 3D printing to make the fracture cast. Like here, if we talk about the conventional fracture cast, so the conventionally we use the fracture cast by using a POP material or the or plaster of Paris material. So the disadvantage of the POP material is like we cannot apply water on that, and it has to be protected from the water, and the skin bleeding is not happening, so the patient will have some kind of itching problem there. So if we have such kind of 3D printed fracture cast, so the beauty of this is like it is going to be the water washable. Here we can see it is a water washable. It looks cool, and here we can concentrate on the area where the actual fracture is there. Like for example, this is the area where the actual fracture is there. So here we can increase the density of the material, and later and the remaining side we can decrease the density. So likewise, we can make the lightweight fracture cast, and this fracture cast can be removed, and the skin will also breathe since the air pockets are there. So skin is going to be breathed. So itching problem is also been solved. So such kind of fracture cast can also be used by using 3D printing techniques. Okay. So these are some of the companies which are working in the healthcare sector. So now these are the like I talked about the application side, like where we can use a 3D printing technique. Now suppose if we want to use if we want to proceed in the biomedical area, so how do we need to proceed? Like what steps do we need to take if you want to make any kind of if you want to serve this area, if you want to make any kind of biomedical model? Okay. So the first question is like, who is going to solve the problem? Is it the medical professional or the engineering professional, or is it a combination of both? It is going to be the combination of both, because like from the medical professionals we can get the need, and those need can be solved by the engineer. And once the need has been solved, like once we make the first prototype or the POC, then those POCs and prototype are been validated by the medical professional. So it is going to be the combination of both. Like both of them needs to work in a team in order to solve this problem. The process chain of product development, we can define the process chain of product development into 4 steps. The first one is define, develop, deliver, and deploy. So in define, we are going to identify the need. We are going to define the need about that, what exactly needs to be made. Then we are going to develop the prototype. We are going to develop the POC. Then we are going to deliver the product for the we are going to deliver the product for the testing and validation. And once the testing and validation and regulatory approvals are there, then we are going to deploy the product. Like we are going to commercialize the product, or the product has been readily available into the market. So this is the basic product development chain which has been followed. So let's talk about the case study. Like okay, I'll talking about a case study. So the first question is, how do we identify the need? So how can we identify if there is a need to develop the product? So one needs to continuously meet the surgeons. Like from the surgeon, we can get a valuable inputs. So one needs to observe closely the surgical procedure and the technique which are used by the medical professionals, like how they're doing the surgery, how they're holding the tools, how they're using the tools, and is there any better way to use the tool? Is there any better way to hold the tool? Or can we suggest any kind of design modification which will be useful for them, which will just increase their efficiency, which will increase the ease of using the tool? So all those things, all those observations we need to make, and if you want to make this kind of observation, we can just visit the hospitals, we can visit the OTs if possible, we can visit a medical camps, and from there we can identify, and we can observe and identify the need. And there is also a need for comfort to the patient and surgeon. Like if we can also talk to the patient, like are they comfortable by using the product that they are been they use. Like suppose if someone is using someone has been implanted with a generic kind of implant, so we can go and ask the patient, are you comfortable with the implant? Are you facing any kind of trouble? Are you facing any kind of discomfort by using such kind of implants? And like this, from all those things, we can just generate the need. And we always need to keep our minds open. We have to look here and there, and just like we have to see if there is any kind of problem is being faced by the society, and such kind of problems can ultimately generate the needs. Okay, so this is how we can identify the need. So once the need generated, so then we need to gather some kind of information regarding the product. So in order to gather the information, again the same thing, we need to visit the health centers. We need to closely observe the medical professionals, like what techniques they're using. If they have, like if we are suggesting any modification for the current product or a current kind of procedure, so we need to study the current solution or the existing solution which is there with them, and we can find out the problem, that what problem they are facing. Like suppose if they're using any kind of seizure or the forceps, so if they're facing any design problem in the forceps, so we can just suggest them the design modification. If that forceps is not able to if that forceps can be used for any one or two kind of techniques, so we can just suggest them, okay, we can do some kind of design modification, and this forceps can be used for 5 to 6 different kind of techniques. So likewise, we can just study the existing solution, and we can always find out the optimum way to solve the problem. Okay. So accordingly, we can just gather the information regarding the product development, and once the information is gathered, then we are going to make the prototype and validate the prototype. Okay. So let's talk about this product development from a case study. So suppose I want to make an artificial bone. Okay, so this is the photo of the actual bone, cadaver bone, and I want to make a replicate of this bone. Okay, so the first thing is the first thing is the need identification. Why the temporal bone is needed? So a temporal bone is the ear bone, and which usually protects the inner ear, and it is a part of a skull. Okay, so why there is a need for such kind of models, for such kind of bones? Like since it is one of the most complex bone within the body, and a lot of trained surgeons have been needed to perform the surgeries. Okay, like there are very few area or few acting area is there where the surgery has been performed, and suppose by mistakenly if anything happens, so it can lead to the complication, or it can lead to the medical errors. So in order to reduce the medical errors, so the trained surgeons are going to be needed, and the training can be done if they have some more or more kind of bones. Like unless and until they have a specimen to do the hands-on practice, they cannot do the trainings. So our the need was, in order to train the surgeon, there should be a model which can be used as a hands-on practice. Okay, so that is what the need has been generated. So we studied with the existing kind of solution, like is it like the surgeon do not have any other kind of substitute in order to do the training, or it is a completely new kind of technology or new kind of idea or a concept. So that we need to think. So we found a substitute for this. The substitute was the real bone, or the cadaver bone. So with the real bone, the problem was like the real availability was the major issue. So real bone were obtained from the dead bodies, which are usually unclaimed or which are donated by the person to the medical centers. So from there we can get the real bones, and real bones can have an infectious agent such as TB, hepatitis B and C viruses. Okay, and the cost is also going to be very high, and some countries is prohibiting the same. And many medical students avoid cadaveric dissections due to moral or ethical grounds. Okay, and if someone is not having a human cadaver bone available with them, so what they do is like they find a substitute, and they take the animal cadaver bones. So they take the animal cadaver bodies, and they do practice on the same. Okay, so these were the problem with the existing solution. So then we applied the product development cycle for the same. Like what we do is we define the need for the dissection. If in order to train the surgeon, the model is needed. So that was the need. So then we developed the solution for the same. So we developed an anatomically accurate model, and we printed the model with a very close tolerance, so that the printing errors can be eliminated. Like it may happen that whatever we made in the CAD model, the entire thing cannot be printed. Like there is some kind of data loss or some kind of geometric losses are going to be there. So we need to avoid those data and geometric losses. So that's why we printed with a very close tolerances. Then we validated the product. Then we delivered in delivery. We validated the product. So the product validation has been done by using mock surgeries, by using the pre-trials, and by validating the internal anatomical structures and external anatomical structures. So this is how we deliver the product into the market. We validated the product, and finally we deployed. So in deployed, we filed the IPR, we filed the patents, we commercialized the product, we conducted the workshops. So we conducted the workshops to validate the product and introduce the product into the market. So this is how the product development cycle has been worked here. So if we talk about the step two, so like here the need has been developed. So now I want to, so need has been defined. Now I want to develop the model. Okay. So the first step is to make the 3D virtual model. To make the 3D virtual model. In order to make the 3D virtual model, we need to take the inputs of the bone. So inputs can be taken either from the CT scan or from the 3D scanning. Okay. Here if you want to work for the internal anatomical structures, we need to go with the CT scan only, because 3D we need to go with the CT scan only because 3D scanning will give the external surface contour only, external surface geometry only. Okay. So if you want to work on the internal geometrical side, we need to go with the CT scan. And once the CT scan is there, then we will be using any kind of biomodeling softwares like Mimix is there, DICOM to print, 3D systems DICOM to print is there, or open source software if we talk about, and 3D slicer is there. So we can use any of the biomodeling software, and we can convert the CT scan into a geometric model. Okay, this is how the steps will be followed. And in the biomedical software side, we can do the design iterations, we can do the design manipulations, like if custom as we were talking about the customized implants. So those customized implants can be made in this biomodeling software, and from here we can get two kind of outputs. One, the bone model is also can be extracted, or the anatomical model can be extracted, and second one is like we can make the customized implants, and those customized implants can also be stored and saved for the 3D printing. And later on we are going to get the final geometric model. Okay, so this is the final geometric model that we got. Say we try to make the exact replicate of the cadaver bone that I have shown you earlier, and then we printed the model. So in printing the model, we try to just check all the anatomical details. So here I have shown all the anatomical details there. External anatomical features are been identified and marked, and then we validated the product in the so here the development phase is completed. Now we need to validate the product. So in order to validate the product, we did the 3-step validation. The first step was like we validated by using the mock surgeries or the trial surgeries. We along with the surgeons have done the mock surgeries on the model. They have opened the bones. They have identified all the landmarks, all the features which should be there within the bone. So internal features were identified, and then we did the validation by using the CT scan data. So what here for this CT scan validation, what we did was we had taken this bone, and then this bone was again done the CT scan, and from the CT scan these are the slices of the CT scan. So in the slices we can identify the internal features there, and all the internal features are been observed there. And from this CT scan of the 3D printed model, we again regenerated the CAD model, and we superimpose this CAD model with the original CAD model, and we try to check if there are any kind of surface deviations or not. So we found the accuracy of 90 to 95% while printing. And the third step validation was like we validated by using a drill response, like how much hard the material is in order to drill the bone. Okay, so this is how we delivered the material. We delivered and validated the product, and the final one is the deploy. So in deploy, we filed a patent. We have incubated a startup. We made a startup and incubated at VNIT, and we are trying to commercialize the product into the market. So this is how the product development cycle works. I hope I try to cover many aspects of this medical domain. So I with this I conclude my session, and I open the forum for the discussion. Like if you have any kind of doubts, so you can ask me. Yeah, Lakshmi, we are currently working for the soft tissue side. Like we have developed the pathological bones with the soft tissues, and we will be soon coming with the soft tissue models as well.
You're
For the
audible, sir. It's time for question and answer. If you have any question, just
Yes, sir.
put up in the chat box. He will, Mr. Piyush will answer you.
For the soft tissue, the BioInk, the soft tissue that we're using it, we are not using it for the patients. We're using it to mimic the material properties of the soft tissue, and we will be using the same for the training purpose. So the BioInk, we cannot disclose what kind of BioInk we have used because that's a patent pending technology, and we will be soon coming up with those model. And once those models are out in the market, then I can tell you about it. But right now I can tell you is like we use the soft tissue material. We are using the soft tissue material that are been in-house developed. The best used biomaterial or composite is like if you talk about the polymeric side, the PEEK material is currently being used widely, and it is the substitute. It serves as a substitute for the titanium implants, and many people are using the PEEK material to make the cranium plates as well as few orthopedic implants. And PCL is also one of the material which is used as a biomaterial. It's a biodegradable material, and I think they're using those kind of material to make the scaffolds. For dental, people are using PMMA material, and if for 3D printing, if you're talking about, so some dental molding material is there in the market, and that material comes in the name of a dental material only. Like if you want a 3D printed material, so you just go to Google and search for the dental 3D printing material. So you will find a resin, biocompatible resin is there, and those biocompatible resin is been used. And yeah, for implant you can also use TI6Al4V, that's titanium alloy, and that is also been used. For skin graft, I have to check. Like silicone material has been used as a skin graft. It is a really good material which is widely been accepted by the body. And I have to check for other materials because the material that we are using, we are not using it for the patients. So that's why I have not searched for the skin grafts material. But silicone can be used there.